Welcome everybody. I would also like to welcome those viewers who are at home watching the meeting via the live stream. Just a reminder that it remains mandatory for everyone to have signed in using the safer WA QR code or the hard copy register on entry. We'll now start with the opening prayer, and if I could ask you all to please be upstanding. Deputy Mayor Proud, could you please read out the opening prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
And if I could ask you to remain standing, Councillor Hatton, could you please read out the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Please note that without prior approval, any recording of the meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. Now brings us to item 1, which is the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 16th of November 2021 open at 7:02 p.m. Item 2, apologies. I do have an apology from Councillor Bianca Sandri. Item 3, approved leave of absence. I have nil. Item 4, disclosure of interest. From the Audit Committee, 8th of November, I have nil. From Committee and Resources Committee on 9th, Councillor Chris Hatton disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.2 ES1, as he is an employee of the Department of Education. Likewise, Councillor David Lagan disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.2 ES1. Councillor Felicity Farrelly disclosed an impartial interest in the Master Plan Scarborough area. From the council meeting of tonight, the Director of Infrastructure, Michael Littleton, has declared an impartial interest in item 7, as he is a non-playing member of the Mount Lawley Golf Club. Councillors, are there any other disclosures of interest? Yes, Councillor Thornton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too, like Councillor Hatton and Lagan, have an impartial interest in item 12.2 ES1. I also work for the Department of Education.
Thank you. No other indication. That will take us to petitions. Councillors, do you have any unverified petitions you wish to announce this evening? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a petition with 58 names on it that are unverified, so I'll give it to the officers in a sec. To be quite honest, Mr. Mayor, I'm a little bit disappointed that this petition is in front of us. In a nutshell, this affects the Belga Community Centre, and the 2 seniors clubs have all signed the petition that are from that community centre. I won't read it out, it's quite lengthy, but in a nutshell, basically they used to have a community bookcase there that was removed and replaced with newspaper stands. And the reason I'm a bit disappointed that it is in front of us today is the constant complaints from the community on getting it back have seemed to be ignored. So if the officers can pay a little bit more attention and get that bookcase back, I'm sure the Belga community users would be much appreciative.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Might be in there tomorrow, I reckon. All right, any other indications? Councillor Reid.
Thank you. We the undersigned do respectfully request that the city reconsiders the recommendation regarding the student parking and traffic congestion around Churchland High School for approximately a 1-year trial of time parking restrictions throughout the estate for the following reasons. That with the following amendment, the time restriction amendment to 8 a.m. to 10:30 only and exclude residents accepted, and the justification for this petition is the recommendations implemented by council last May did nothing to improve the estate all-day parking. The current recommendations will only exacerbate the congestion in the remainder of the estate. The cul-de-sac should not be viewed as a suitable all-day parking lots due to the danger to residents. By simply allowing students to use their cars where they did not previously, the city is not promoting emission reduction in accordance with their own policies. The congestion caused by these students prevents tradesmen with trailers from parking anywhere near the ratepayers' residence without totally blocking the streets. And 6, implementing the requested time restrictions will result in almost all of the issues in the estate being resolved. Thank you. And got 100 unverified signatures.
Thanks, councillor. Is there any other indication? No. Then can I please have a move and a second to accept those petitions? Move Councillor Ree, seconded Councillor Farrelly. Just a show of hands, councillors. That's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Collins. Okay. Yep. Okay. Let's have a look. Just, Mr. Collins. Thank you. Let me just check. Mr. Blanchard. I'll get Mr. Blanchard to provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There has been an unverified position presented to the city in the last 5 minutes. That will be presented at the next council meeting.
So it will form part of the minutes. That's not proper procedure. I asked the councillor yesterday that there's petition from people at no time reserved with something that's broken, a breakdown in the toilet. No, Mr. Collins, thank you. Yeah, I understand, but there's no obligation on the councillor to present it. I'm sorry. Thanks, Mr. Collins. I can't, it's not up for debate tonight, so it will form part of the minutes. Your petition has been received. Mr. Collins, please take a seat. Thanks. I'm sorry, Mr. Collins, that's just how it is. Mr. Collins, I'm not going to ask you again. Please take a seat. Mr. Collins, please take a seat. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice. All public question time responses from the previous council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. Item 7, public question time. We've received some questions for tonight's meeting, and I will now move on to those. Lorraine Matier. Are you here, Lorraine? Yes. Oh, yes, if you'd like to come forwards. Okay, so let me clarify. So some of these questions, and I do know we have received quite a few who have already indicated they won't be attending this evening. Those questions will appear in the agenda in the minutes and will be responded to in writing. If the name is here in it, and we believe you're here, we will ask you to come up and read those. You don't have to come up and read those, but they will be in the minutes. Yeah. Trevor Hoddy, please. Yep. Would you like to come up, or are you happy just for them to be in the minutes? Thank you. Yep. No. So let me be clear that the questions you've put in have only gone through governance, and many of them, obviously, with lots of questions received today. Some of them have already got written responses. Some of them wouldn't have written responses yet, but they will all appear in the minutes. I just want to be really clear. If you're expecting council to know what you asked, the council won't know. So if you think it's not that important they know tonight, because I know some questions are regarding issues that aren't on the agenda, that's fine. But if they're an issue that's on the agenda tonight, then council will not yet be aware, so I would suggest you read them. Is that all right? Yep. So, sorry, is everyone clear on that? So, and that's not a breakdown in anything, it's just, obviously councils have their full agendas to read. There can be hundreds of questions that come in during the day, so there's no way that council can actually either receive the question or respond or get a response written to them in time. Mr. Hoddy, if you'd like to turn the microphone on, if you press the button down the bottom there, you just need to, on the right-hand side, it'll go red, that's it. And if you just say your name and your suburb, which item you would like to ask a question on, and then you may ask your question.
Okay, my name is Trevor Hoddy. I'm from Churchlands Avenue in Churchlands.
Thank you.
And I submitted 2 questions. Start with the first one, or?
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you. So, does the council agree that, one, as current Landgate records show the Churchland Senior High School interfaces with the Bushland Reserve and not with the westernmost stretch of Churchlands Avenue in the vicinity of number 45 through to 53 Churchlands Avenue. And the Stirling Council has stated that it refers to the state Planning Commission livable neighbourhoods when making a decision. Then why are the Churchland students drop-off and pick-ups allowed here, as that state planning document states that pickups and drop-offs must occur on the 3 roads around the school, not where the park is,
Thank you.
basically.
Mr Littleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Student pick-up and drop-offs are permitted on roads within Churchland's estate, as they are public gazetted roads and are available for use by all members of the public. It is also important to note that there is a pedestrian access gate from the school into Churchlands Avenue, which further legitimises the use of the road for pick-up and drop-off purposes.
Have you got another question, Mr Hoddy?
Yeah, there was a second question.
Yeah, if you'd like to ask another one, you're welcome to.
Okay. So the next one is really related to Education Department. Both the Director of General Education and the Minister of Education have in writing stated that they will liaise with the school to discourage both the parking and the student drop-off and pick-ups in our subdivision. And both those have also been stated in 2016. That at that time, funding was granted for the school to upgrades to include 137 students parking and parent drop-offs away from our subdivision. As Churchland Senior High School parking policy shows, they currently only allow on-site all-day parking for staff with gated entry to the parking bays. Then clearly the promises from the Education Department to residents that not materialised in fairness to residents, ratepayers in our estate. Will the City consider a trial of restricted parking signage in our estate to proactively encourage the school to manage the student vehicle parking and the drop-off and drop-off?
Yeah, thank you. And all I can say is there is an item on the agenda that does have one solution. It's not the only solution that Council will consider this evening.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. David Egan?
I'm going to speak.
Thank you. And we just need your name and suburb only. We don't need your address, just your suburb.
David Egan, suburb Churchlands.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that'll do. You can ask your question, sir.
Okay, I've sent my questions already through, but I'm going to read them out for you. The first one is related to good standing. Some students who parked on the Churchlands Avenue on school days along the drain have told residents that they park in the subdivision despite bays being available to them in Memory Place because the school, quotations, the school has warned us that we will lose good standing if we park over there. In other words, it appears that students were discouraged from parking near the school even when the P-plate signs were up. And this is despite the fact that the recommendations as passed at the 27th April 2021 meeting were promised to be conveyed in writing and discussed with the Education Department and with the Churchland Senior High School. Question. Given this, will the City consider proactively placing restrictive signage in our entire state to encourage the school to engage with the Education Department to both use the 50 or so empty on-site parking bays still seem to be available and to finally act on their own student vehicle parking policy as has been done by other government senior high schools?
Thank you, Mr Egan. The item is obviously on the agenda this evening, as I said before, and Council will consider parking restrictions throughout the Churchlands estate. I can also confirm that that has been mentioned to us before, and we have secured a meeting already with many members of the department, including project officers, and also the school principal and the local member.
Thank you.
In the next 2 weeks.
The second question relates to the same sort of thing, but it actually quotes, and I'll quote the bit. The City states that on the City's website, it states that permit parking areas aim to encourage the community to use more sustainable modes of transport to minimize congestion within our residential streets. Can Council explain why the parking congestion problems in Churchland's estate are treated differently to those mentioned?
Mr Littleton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. The use of resident parking permits may still be considered as an option in the future. However, the City is first seeking to explore alternative methods of shifting parking from these residential roads to designated areas on Memory Place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you. Dean Hodgson, please. Is there a Dean here? Is Mary Basson here? Thank you. Just your name and your suburb, please.
Mary Basson, Churchlands.
And your questions. You're welcome to start.
Oh. My first premise and then question is, on page 34 of tonight's agenda, it stated that our estate cul-de-sacs, one quote, remain a safe location to accommodate school overflow parking out of the path of pedestrians, cyclists and parents picking up their children. Close quote. The Grove is one of those cul-de-sacs that is being referred to there. Including minded grandchildren, there can be up to 13 children aged 16 years or under in this cul-de-sac during weekdays, and 5 of those are 5 years old or less. And so they're often outside during the weekdays playing, using push scooters, push cars, tricycles, trainer bikes, or just running, chasing in our front yards or on verges. Considering this, we ask the Council if they think it's such a very good idea to direct inexperienced P-platers to drive and park in our very narrow cul-de-sac.
Thank you. And obviously that item is on the agenda this evening. No, Council don't think it's a good idea to direct people in there. Obviously, there has been restrictions put in place and Council will consider that issue tonight.
The WA Planning Commission's Livable Neighbourhoods document states that the reduction in the use of cars is encouraged, and so that their current technical requirements for low-level residential subdivisions, as is our estate, afford sufficient parking for residents. But this planning document makes no provision for parking use by those accessing other categories of development, like educational institutions. These planning guidelines and technical requirements are very specific. Exactly where in this document does it state that cul-de-sacs, or indeed any roads within a low residential subdivision, can be used as all-day parking lots by outside commuters accessing a different category of development and not accessing any estate-related matter?
Thank you. Mr Littleton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The planning guidelines do not make specific reference to the use of cul-de-sac roads. As stated above, the suitability of these roads has been considered on the basis of low volumes of traffic and pedestrians, drivers obeying road rules and common courtesies, and parents and carers providing adequate supervision.
Hussain Karamai. In the minutes, certainly. Deirdre Allen.
Yes.
Thank you. Just your name and suburb to start.
Deirdre Allen of Corbinia. Lord Mayor, councillors, administration staff and the public gallery. I'd like to ask my questions in respect to a footpath for Carnarvon Crescent, Corbinia. Question 1. Will residents be informed of the proposal to construct a footpath to gauge their level of interest before the expenditure is committed to the development of a route, design and drawings? I note the community and stakeholder engagement policy that the Council has. Question 2.
Sorry, let me get an answer for you.
Okay, sorry.
That's right. Mr Littleton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Mrs Allen. The construction of footpaths across the entire city has been set as a strategic direction by Council, and the city does not seek direct feedback from residents to determine their level of support for each individual footpath that is constructed. However, Council's policy was preceded by extensive citywide consultation as part of the development of the Strategic Community Plan, and there was strong feedback for the city to provide a safe, efficient and effective path network that encourages walking, cycling and public transport. Notwithstanding this, the City will provide and does provide notification letters to residents a number of weeks prior to the commencement, we're certainly happy to receive any feedback from that affected community on those proposed works.
Thank you. Question 2, are alternative routes designs being considered, including the pros and cons of each and the cost comparisons?
Mr Littleton?
Yeah, look, a fair bit of work goes into the design of footpaths. When developing a design for a footpath, the City takes into consideration a number of factors, including abutting land uses, the location of mature trees and vegetation, the connection of other existing and future paths, adverse slopes within the verge, the location of overhead street lighting, and the impacts of afternoon sun and shade. All of these factors are taken into consideration to get the best outcome for the network.
Thank you. Question 3, are there also proposals for constructing footpaths in the streets feeding into Carnarvon Crescent, and what is their timing?
Mr Littleton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whilst most of the roads in the surrounding neighbourhood already have a footpath, there is still a lack of connectivity at some locations. As per council policy, a footpath will ultimately be constructed on all roads within the City. The City has ranked and prioritised each road based on various risk factors, and the timing of construction will be subject to the relative ranking of each footpath and the allocation of funding by council within its annual budget process. Under this program, new paths have been constructed on Lennox Street, Ardras Crescent, Armidale Crescent, and missing sections of Rothsay Crescent and Holmfirth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arthur Mistillis, please.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, honourable councillors and staff. My name is Arthur Mistillis, Kilbinia. My first question is, in respect to a footpath for Carnarvon Crescent, Kilbinia, is there a proposal for a footpath to be constructed in Carnarvon Crescent from Bradford Street to Elmer Street or any part thereof?
Mr Littleton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Nice to see you, Mr Mistillis.
Thank you.
Yes, the construction of a footpath along Carnarvon Crescent is listed on the approved 21-22 budget and will be constructed this year. This path will complete a missing link between Bradford and Elmer.
Number 2, how does a proposal like this originate?
Mr Littleton?
The proposal for a footpath originated initially in this city's integrated transport strategy, which was first considered in 2009, and the city's then new footpath policy approved in 2012. The primary statement within this policy is that all streets within the city are to have a footpath on at least one side, and that is largely in relation to our mobility and accessibility of our network across the city. The development of this policy was preceded by extensive consultation citywide, and there was strong feedback from the community for the city to provide safe, efficient and effective local transport networks that encourage walking, cycling and public transport.
Thank you. What are the state and City of Stirling standards and criteria concerning footpaths, driveway crossovers and bus stop structures?
Well, we'll give you a brief answer. We might have to provide all of that in writing though. Mr Littleton? Principally our guidelines are provided or are consistent with Austroad standards, Australian standards and current design practices established by the Department of Transport, particularly around bus stops.
The city does have a document that I haven't got access yet concerning crossovers, doesn't it?
Yes, and we can provide all of that in writing to you, Mr Mistillis.
Thank you very much.
Happy to get it to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Andrew Freen, I'm not sure if he's attending. That does bring us to 15 minutes of question time, so I'll now extend question time so we can allow for the remaining questions under the new standing orders. I can just do that, so we don't even need a vote. Look how simple we've made things. Leonie Carol Viana, please. And just your name and suburb for the records, please.
Cool. Leonie Caraviana, Hammersley. Firstly, I'd just like to extend a thank you to the Mayor, Councillors and the city staff for your continued dedication to the Stirling community, especially during the COVID pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you.
My questions tonight are in regards to details as documented in the agenda of ordinary meeting of council, Tuesday 16th of November 2021. Who can believe it's getting so close to Christmas? Cash and investment report, page 89, trust fund and reserve fund. In regards to each individual payment amount that makes up the totals for the payment in lieu of public open space amount, and I'll try and read this. Is that 13213.011? Sorry, I'm having a moment with my numbers. And the cash lieu open space amount of $195,689. Can council please advise what company, organisation or individual has made each payment? What is the amount paid by the company, organisation or individual? When was each payment made to the City of Stirling? What is the location and size of the land the payment relates to? What will this land now be used for? And in relation to each of the monetary payments, what park or reserve is the council intending to allocate the funds to? And what will the funds be used for at each of these sites? What cost estimates have been done for each allocation of funds? And what is the timeline for utilising the funds at each site? Thank you very much. I am aware this question may be taken under advisement.
I was going to have a go, but okay. Yes, we'll take...
Go on, have a go.
Not at all. Thank you for your question. We'll certainly provide you all of that detail in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Hawkins was waiting to go to that one, I think, weren't you? Yes. Roland Hadley. Your name and suburb, please.
Roland Hadley, Woodlands. Good evening, all. The Ewan Street Community Group are very concerned that two words, yet again, were omitted in the minutes of the 12th of October Council meeting. Minutes of meetings should accurately record what has been spoken, and in the interest of transparency and accounting, we request the minutes be amended irrespective of the fact that it may have criticised the Council.
Mr Hadley, my understanding, minutes are not verbatim. I can't imagine those two words made a significant difference to the minutes of a certain meeting.
Well, the reference, the connotation, yet again, refers to it's occurred again. That's why it was actually included.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't change the decision. And now it's on public record. So there you go.
Similarly, I said, perhaps the new body of councillors may wish to discuss this matter. Was this sentence included in the minutes? Absolutely not. Through the chair, Mr Mayor, will the CEO advise or explain why this omission occurred and how the minutes be adopted if they are not an accurate record?
Yeah, I'll get Mr CEO to answer that one. I would suggest it's as before, but...
Through the chair, the minutes of the proceedings are setting out the decision making. It's not verbatim, and we've advised that in the past. Our minutes are scrutinised by the department, etc., and we fully comply in terms. It wouldn't be practical to do a full verbatim of every meeting, but as the Mayor's...
I appreciate that, yes.
So, as the Mayor's indicated, that does not change the decision of Council when it arrives at its decision. So we will not be bringing in verbatim minutes. It's not leading practice.
Mr Hadley.
Thank you. Can the Council advise who owns the garden strip of land that runs east of the childcare centre at the bottom of Ewan Street East? Who maintains the nature strip? This is the strip which runs parallel to the Great Wall of Woodlands. And who is responsible for the street lighting, as many of the lights are not working?
Yeah, can we take that one on notice, Mr Hadley, and provide you that response? Just make sure we get it right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Collins, Paul Collins, please. Mr Collins, just your name and suburb, thank you.
Paul Collins, Dianella.
You might just have to lift that microphone up a bit.
Paul Collins, Dianella.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, Mr Mayor, I've had to change my questions tonight. Mr Mayor, I contacted Councillor Migdale yesterday, informing the councillor I have a petition for her to present at council. Councillor Migdale left a voicemail on my phone asking how she could collect it so as to present.
Is there a question, Mr Collins?
Yes, I texted to say I would hand it to her before the council meeting, and Councillor Migdale acknowledged that with a text reply of thanks. Why didn't the councillor present the petition to the meeting?
I'm not sure, Mr Collins. I've already answered that for you.
Why was the petition I handed to Councillor Migdale not presented to the meeting and therefore not received and recorded in the motion by councillors of receiving the petitions?
Thank you. And all I can tell you again is the councillor chose not to read it. The reality is petitions received this evening are unverified petitions. It means yours is now in the system. It will become a verified petition and it will appear on the agenda at the next meeting.
Mr Mayor, the petition was not received tonight. If it's not received, I want it back, and I want it handed back to me right now.
Yes, happy to hand it back to you, Mr Collins.
Bring it to me.
Mr Collins, how about you ask your third question?
Well, I'll wait for the petition for the moment, and I'll see if I get it back, I'll ask a third question. It is disgraceful
Mr Collins,
that a councillor...
Mr Collins, don't make me ask you to sit down.
The press will hear about this. Mr Mayor, I'll give you an opportunity, Mr Mayor. I ask if you would please go back to the agenda item of petitions and you personally receive this petition and acknowledge that it's been received, and then ask council, like they did with the other two petitions, to have this petition received by formal motion tonight. Mr Mayor, would you be prepared to do that, given that I've taken the time out of my evening to present this petition?
I can't give you an easy answer. Let me check with the Manager of Governance and see if that is possible under
Ask
our...
if you could do that.
It's got to be under our meeting procedures, Mr
And
Collins.
then
Mr Collins, take a
problem
seat. No, I'm not even going to bother now. Take a seat. You had your chance. I was about to check. You're being rude. Take your seat. It will not get read out tonight.
the problem would be solved.
Thank you. Mr Mitchell.
Mr Mayor, I'm asking...
Mr Collins, take a seat.
I haven't been rude. I'm asking you...
Mr Collins, please take a seat.
The person being rude is the person that didn't present the petition that I handed to the
Mr
council.
Collins, I'm not going to warn you again. Take a seat, thank you.
Well, Mr Mayor, you
Security,
haven't answered my
please
question.
can we ask Mr Collins to take a seat?
You haven't answered my question.
Please take your seat so we can get on with people's questions.
Well, I'm asking...
Please take a seat. Turn the microphone off, thank you.
No, because I would like a petition received.
Mr Collins, take a seat or council will adjourn for 10 minutes. We've got people here with real concerns, Mr Collins, not for political grandstanding. Now, please take a seat. Council, we will now adjourn, please, if council could leave. Thank you. Members of the gallery, please note we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. We will now resume, and I'll invite Mr Mitchell up to ask his question. And just turn that microphone back on for me, Mr Mitchell. Just your name and suburb.
Robert Mitchell, Karrinyup. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, council officers, members of the public and ratepayers. Just before we go on, I noted when you asked the councillors to adjourn for 5 minutes, there was others that went out as well. I just wanted to note that. They know who they are.
Oh, good on you, Mr
They're
Mitchell.
Administrators, okay?
Good on you, Mr Mitchell.
Thank you. Now, my questions tonight are two, and they relate back to October last year. But on the 12th of October, I asked two questions, and the first one was this matter about the control of traffic in this development. This is the Karrinyup Shopping Centre. Has been going on since October 2019. I was advised by the Mayor at the time the plinths were too big, and now administrators made the decision they were fine. I also pointed out in the letter to the Mayor that the city had approved illuminated street signs elected on metal poles with all paid advertising throughout the city. Why is it the city designed these things on a pole with all the advertising, yet people can dump plinths down and be a traffic hazard and carry on as though nothing happened? The answer I received from the acting mayor, who was in the chair at the time, the acting mayor advised that clarification will be provided by phone. Hello, I'm waiting. Now, that was the...
What's your question, Mr Mitchell?
That one. I haven't had a call from anybody.
I call you all the time, Mr Mitchell.
To me, is a cop-out.
I call you all the time about these.
Sorry?
We've had several chats about these, and if let me answer now. If I'm correct, you were the one who said they were too big. I came out and said, yeah, I can see they're pretty big, but you said they were too big. Look, the plinths, we've answered this before, that they're part of an overall plan to show people where to park in that shopping centre. The development's still underway. The city doesn't have a problem with them. The city has, in the meantime, issued a temporary approval now, and we'll revisit it once all the precinct is finished and the roads around it are busy.
Mayor, just for your information, someone you know and the council know very well nearly had an accident there and told me about it. I won't disclose the person, but you'd know them very well. Now, I'll get on to my second question.
I don't know, Mr Mitchell.
And that is in relation to the council administration of what part of illegal is not understood. The answer. The Director of Infrastructure confirmed that the signs are not approved, and the city is currently working with the developer to identify an appropriate solution to effective highlight parking availability. He added that the developer has indicated they intend to make an application to make these signs a permanent feature, then that will enable the proposal to be formally assessed. And I just say, it's still illegal. When will it be resolved? It's definitely long-winded.
It's a temporary approval.
And are the administration scared of the developer?
It's a temporary approval, and I've told you before, I don't think they're a safety issue.
There's no temporary approval, Mayor, and you know it.
There is?
There is not.
We'll provide that to you in writing. Have you got another question, Mr Mitchell?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Peter Ellis? Mr Ellis, your name and suburb?
Peter Ellis, Corrine. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and fellow ratepayers. What is the advantage to all the ratepayers, for some employees to be employed on a 5-year contract, which includes a provision for a 12-month notice to rehire or terminate?
Thank you. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Ellis. With regards to conditions of contract, those are negotiated for individual employees. Because it is a 5-year term as opposed to a permanent, that means that there are different conditions attached to those contracts, and that's in terms of attracting staff.
Okay, thank you. When long service leave is granted to employees after 10 years service, is there a time limit set on when they are required to take that leave?
Ms Hawkins?
Oh, sorry, yours again, okay.
Sorry, I'll get you to repeat the question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. When long service leave is granted to employees after 10 years service, is there a time limit set on when those staff are required to take that leave?
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, Mr Ellis, they must take it after 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it more financially viable to hire a private company to fertilise the parks and ovals than to have those tasks performed by employed staff?
It's probably a bit more complicated. It depends on the equipment they might need too, Mr Ellis. I'll get Mr Littleton.
Fortunately, we have Mr Hunter in the wings today, so I might pass it over to Mr Hunter.
Oh, handball.
Mr Hunter? He's very happy with that by the look of it.
It is more viable to use commercial contractors for that exercise because, as you can imagine, well, the parks are fertilised typically in spring and autumn in a very short period of time, normally 4 to 6 weeks, and the contractor has multiple vehicles doing that exercise, so that it can be maximised within that window.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, councillors,
You're welcome. Tom Webster, are you here? There you go. Thank you. Your name and suburb?
Yes, Tom Webster. Good evening, councillors.
Good evening.
This is in regard to the Sustainable Energy Action Plan. Council Resolution number 0221-017 in February 21 that a high-level business case prepared concurrently with Sustainable Energy Action Plan into the economic viability of proposed actions, including potential early adoption of solar rooftop panels, solar car park panels, battery storage due to many recent advances in solar cell technology and lowering costs. We've got some questions regarding the Sustainable Energy Action Plan and the recommendation of the Community and Resource Committee, of which councillors asked questions but did not receive answers at the last Community and Resources Committee. The first one would be, how was it that there was a saving of $5.8 million that was put back in May of this year, that was reported as the saving for option 1. Then that changed the last 2 weeks ago to $1.8 million, and then the day of the meeting was changed to $800,000 saving. Can we have the methodology that was used on that and the copy of the report? Because it seems very inconsistent that we have got a $5 million change in a report that was commissioned that long ago.
Thank you. Mr Littleton?
I'm not exactly sure what you're referencing, Mr Webster. The report that was presented to to committee last week showed a relative saving for solar escalation to 2025 at $4.1 million, a solar escalation saving to 2040, remember, of $3.3 million, and if PPA was used, there would be no saving. So through the detailed business case, and when we presented the matter to council in February, as you say, the requirement for us was to undertake a detailed business case. That's what this report that's been presented to November stipulates, and identifies the various savings of the options that were considered. So I'm not exactly sure what figures you're reading from, but that is the information that's in front of us.
Was that report put together via contractors or people who are the consultants? Was that put forward together by the Stirling Council itself? And can we have a copy?
Yes. Mr. Littleton?
The information was certainly prepared by internal staff from a range of business units.
And can we
Mr.
have a copy?
Yes, I've said yes. Mr. Webster, would you like me to set up a meeting for you to come in and sit down with the officers?
Thank you, Mayor. That'd be great.
That might be an easy way to do that.
Cheers. Thank you. My second question, which was one of the councillors' questions, was how much carbon would be saved by implementing the plan on option 1, which was to go 100% renewable by 2025. Was that considered, or was that put in the report?
Mr. Littleton?
Look, it wasn't put in the report. The business case was premised on an economic assessment of savings generated by solar PV consumption. And a range of other things which has led to the recommendation of officers to committee and committee's recommendation to council. But it was really about our ability to deliver a program to 2025 and the various, the economic assessment suggests that and our ability to deliver that option 2 was preferred over option 1.
Thank you for that. Yes, I understand the economics of it, but what I'm questioning is, was that a factor of actually making a decision?
Mr. Webster, have you got another question? We'll set up the meeting, and I think you need to sit down with one of the officers and have a chat about this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've got another question. Why was it that they've said there was a $250,000 cost for every one of the 24 solar installations? Is that accurate? Because as we all know, if you ring up a solar installer, you've pretty much got somebody on your doorstep that week. 2 weeks later, there's somebody on your roof. A week or two after that, you've got the whole thing installed. And yes, we're talking about bigger systems, understandably, but the speed at which the industry is working now is really, really fast. So, how was it estimated, that $250,000? Was that just a rough estimate, or did you get submissions from installers regarding that?
Yep, Mr. Littleton?
Yeah, look, it's as you know, it's substantially different than domestic users. We are talking about substantial solar PV systems that are fairly are very large. So obviously the guys have sought advice from solar PV installers and companies as to what the appropriate costs would be. But it's not just PV, remember. There's a lot of substructure that is involved in developing the infrastructure required to carry the solar PV systems, in particular over car park areas. So obviously our goal isn't to quarantine those areas that for no other use other than solar PV. So I'm sure you can appreciate there's a fair bit more to it than just whacking it on your roof.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Okay, looking forward to the report and the meeting. Thank you.
No problem. Leisha Jack.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. I have 3 questions to Leisha Jack from Karrinyup. I have 3 questions which relate to health and safety and the Mount Lawley Golf Club and Erindale Road Bushland. Question 1. Are all councillors aware that the principal reason that the city has developed an urban forest plan and the trees and development policy and spend so much on planting trees and greenery is to actually reduce urban heat that already kills more people in Perth than road fatalities? And also because extreme heat events are expected to become more intense and more frequent going forward.
Yes.
All councillors, good. Are councillors also aware that heat-related deaths in Australia are seriously underreported? According to the Lancet Medical Journal, research indicates that official records underestimate the association of heat at least 50-fold.
Okay.
So, the amount of, is that funny?
No, I was about to say no. I thought you'd finished your
sorry,
question.
you looked like I thought you were laughing.
No, I went to talk and then you started talking.
Oh, I'm sorry, pardon.
I know you said, are you aware? And I said, so no.
Okay.
We are now.
You are now, good. Okay, I sent you an email today too about it, with the links to the studies, etc. So the situation is a lot worse than we thought. More people are dying from heat, a lot more than we thought. So will the Mayor and Councillors direct City staff to introduce an effective new law that would protect trees, large shrubs and greenery on private land, to halt the destruction of the urban forest, to stop rising urban temperatures, and literally save lives?
Look, that's up to the council. Look, the easy answer is not at this stage. It has been brought up several times. Council is well aware of the issues with retention of trees on private land, and has been looking for some suitable way to mitigate that, and are working with the state government. Okay. Regarding the Mount Lawley Golf Club, is it true that the city has approved a master plan that the club commissioned back in 2015 or so, without a vote from their members, which would remove 550 trees over 15 years, when this nearly 100-year-old timbered park-style private golf club on 74 hectares of city-owned A-class reserve is rated about number 4, depending on which ratings you look at, out of all of WA's golf clubs, and considered a very good course as it is? Do you realise that members haven't voted on any of it, and many of them don't want it? Why is the City of Stirling going along with it? Thank you. Mr Littleton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I might just hand it over to Mr Hunter.
Mr Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Mount Lawley Golf Club has developed a bushland management plan and tree management plan. The goal is to restore the considerable areas of natural habitat to a better condition. It is a long-term program over 15-20 years. There have been some concerns expressed regarding the proposed tree removals. The club is seeking comments from members as part of its consultation process. This 3-month consultation process ends in late December this year. The City encourages interested members to provide their views of those proposals. In early 2022, the club will arrange an information session where the Council's tree delegate will be present to discuss with members each tree to help determine the way forward. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
The bushland was so badly run down by the club that they had to do a bushland thing, by the way, and they also put in a
Thank you, Ms Jack.
A new golf 19th hole without permission from the council.
Thank you, Ms Jack.
Who own the land.
Thank you. Arnold Davies. Your name and suburb, please.
Arnold Davies, Carrinup. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. Will the City of Stirling ensure that the green curb collection dates are included in the waste recycling guide in a like manner to which it was when the guide was first printed 5 or 6 years ago? Because it's not currently in this year's guide. It's prevented a lot of ratepayers who are not on the internet being able to access the service.
Thank you. I'm not sure about that. Mr Littleton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Mr Davies. Look, I'll take that on notice if I can. I know we have been changing the way that we have been trying to deliver information to our community, in particular around the waste guide. So the waste guide is probably a bit of a relic of the past, but we will certainly ensure that the green waste collection guide is communicated effectively.
Apparently there's quite a few ratepayers like me who are relics of the past, you know, and I have now got no access to a agenda because I'm not on computer. So I sit in here just like a dummy.
We're happy to. I think the agenda's available still. No?
No, it's only online.
Yeah, there's agendas available here, Mr Davies. Is that?
Thank you.
Yep.
How much money has the City of Stirling received from the Tamala Park Regional Council for the sale, or from the sale of land for the last each of the last 3 years.
Okay, and we can provide you that response in writing, Mr. Davies.
Thank you.
Oh, hang on. No, we can give it to you now, Miss Hawkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Because thank you, Mr. Davies. I spoke to you earlier, and you let me know this question. So it's actually 5.3 million in total over the past 3 years. So 2021 was 3 million, 1920 was 1 million, and 1819 was 1.3 million. So that's the dividend the city has received.
Yeah, thank you. Will the City of Stirling have the section of the fence shifted at the western side fence of Francis Avenue, carrying up where the shopping centre is having the units built, so that as to enable the ratepayers to have access to the public telephone, which is still there. I didn't realise it was still there until I seen, or they replaced a section of the fence with wire. And it's the only public telephone box in Carrinup.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Happy to look into it for you.
Still there.
Yep, happy to look into it for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. No problem. Tony Sheard.
Thanks. Tony Sheard, Waterman's Bay. Just coming up to talk about the solar PV program under the Sustainable Energy Action Plan. I'm concerned, has been brought up earlier tonight, about the recommended solar program being option 2, being less financially attractive than option 1, which is for the escalation of the solar program up to 2025. I've got, I've been a fellow CPA and financial services fellow, institute, an accountant for CFO for a mining company for a number of years. I currently consult to the mining industry, but the
and
difference...
just need your question, sir.
Yep. The question is asking how the numbers for the 4.1 million saving for escalating to 2025 versus the program that takes it out to 2030 being 3.3 million, a difference of only $800,000, could be determined when there's effectively another 5 years of additional solar energy savings, when the price differential is somewhere between 8 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour, versus I presume you're probably paying something more around 25 cents a kilowatt hour.
Thank you.
So I'm just asking that those numbers, if for whatever is not commercially available, confidential I should say, is provided in terms of some form of a comparative breakdown between those two.
Yes, we can certainly provide that in writing.
Also come to the meeting too, if that's okay, if I could be invited to that.
Yep.
And if I could get that breakdown before the meeting. Second question, regarding the strategic community plan that's gone out, or had recently gone out for community comment, with the objectives thriving community, vibrant economy, livable neighbourhood, sustainability, governance and leadership as their objectives. Given those, asking the council that are they including do they have an intention to include within that strategic community plan suitable targets for aligned with the Paris Agreement for carbon reduction emissions, to keep it in line with somewhere between 1.5 and 2 degrees, and those targets being 50% reduction in carbon emissions for the entire community, targeting that by 2030, and a net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Sure. Let me get a response from Mr. Littleton for you.
Sorry?
I'll get a response from Mr. Littleton for you.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and thanks for the question. The city has already adopted its targets for through its SEEP document. So that was finally endorsed by Council in February of this year. It identifies 70% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030, and it talks about 100% reduction or generation of renewables by 2050. So our targets are well aligned. We have spoken, that those items speak to the Paris Agreement, but specifically the city has again sought to be really conscious about its focus on renewable energy and its reduction in carbon.
Perhaps I wasn't being clear here. I'm talking about the entire Stirling community. I'm not talking about the municipality's operations. I'm talking about the entire Stirling community.
Thank you.
As per the strategic community
I
plan.
would suggest that's out of our remit, sir. We
Would
can
you?
we can certainly support it, but we can't have our target that the Stirling community achieve that. I would say that's the state government.
Right. So you're putting it. So you're saying each council within Australia has no engagement with the communities.
Yeah, we certainly support it, but I can't say that we can put a KPI in that the community has those same targets. We can't tell the community what they should have or shouldn't have.
Okay. So
we are certainly looking at all of our community clubs and everything we can influence, and even in terms of some solar rebates. But I just don't think we can have it as a KPI. So, have you got a final question?
Yes, I do. And further, does the council consider that they're the main representative body for its community in its efforts to mitigate the higher impacts of global warming for its community? And if it does actually state that it does represent the community, it's the main body for representing its community in those ambitions, does it intend on putting in any suitable policies, incentives, and taking other actions that will assist its community in mitigating the worst impacts of global warming and reaching those emissions targets, reduction targets?
Thank you, sir. And yes, we certainly acknowledge we've got a role to play in that. I'll get Mr Littleton to provide a bit more of a response.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Our SEEP, our Sustainable Energy Action Plan, is our corporate document which identifies the city's approach to renewables and reduction of carbon emissions. We are in the process of developing a SEEP community plan, which is designed to advocate and show leadership to our community and to educate the community on what they can be doing to address their own energy footprint or their carbon footprint. So that is the way that we will seek to engage and educate and assist our community along this path. We would acknowledge that whilst the City of Stirling is a substantial leader in its community, our goal is to align and engage with businesses as well as with ratepayers to ensure that we understand that this is a shared task and a shared journey.
Thank you, sir.
Just confirming that within the strategic community plan, you are stating under your objectives of a thriving community, vibrant economy, livable neighbourhood, sustainability and governance and leadership, you have no intention on putting in emissions reductions targets or ambitions.
That's not at all what was said.
Wasn't
So
it?
I
thought that's what I heard.
No. So I think if
So
we include you in that
do intend on
meeting,
putting those ambitions?
Sir, please. You've had your 3 questions. We're happy to include you in the meeting with Mr Webster, and we'll sit down and go through it all with you. It sounds like you want a discussion on it.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have for questions. Have I missed anyone in the gallery? If not, I will move on with the meeting. And I'll go on to item 8, applications for leave of absence. Councillor Bianca-Sandri has requested a leave of absence for the period 16th of November 2021 to 24th of November 2021 inclusive. Are there any further requests for leave of absence? No indication. Item 9, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes? Oh, did I just read that out and move on? Yeah. There I am, just reading away. A mover. So we've got Councillor Chris Hatton and seconded by Councillor David Lagan. And if I could just have a show of hands, please, just for the leave of absence. That is unanimous. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I now have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the following 3 meetings? The ordinary meeting of Council 16th of October 2021, the special meeting of Council 19th of October 2021, and the special meeting of Council 26th of October 2021. Moved Councillor Thornton, seconded Councillor Lagan, and again, just a show of hands. We'll keep this moving along. And that is carried with Councillor Reid voting against. Item 10, announcements by the presiding member. Councillor Suzanne Migdale, you have an announcement.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am greatly pleased to announce that on Wednesday, the 3rd of November 2021, the City of Stirling won 2 major awards at the Local Government Professionals WA Annual State Conference. The City of Stirling was named the 2021 Innovative Management Initiative Award winner. This recognises initiatives that lead the way in management and leadership in local government, which improve local government processes and practices and deliver outstanding benefits to the local government and/or the community. The City was also named the 2021 Excellence in Service Delivery Award winner, which recognises leadership in service delivery leading to corporate process improvements, innovation in management practices, or demonstrated practicality and resourcefulness. Both awards stem from the most significant digital and cultural transformation journey, the delivery of a relationship management system, or RMS, combined with a customer engagement strategy that the City of Stirling has ever embarked on. The implementation of Salesforce as a customer engagement layer with integrations into traditional local government technology is unique in WA local government, and I wish to acknowledge the team of dedicated officers led by the City's Manager, Customer and Communications, Muriel Pickering, for what has been accomplished. Muriel, you should be very, very proud. And I have the awards here.
Okay. Just in case she's watching at home on the live stream. Thank you, Councillor Migdale, and congratulations to the team. Just a minute. Thank you. That now takes us to item 11, which is unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil, and reports and committee recommendations. We'll now move on to audit committee items. No alternative motions have been submitted to governance, and none of the items are required to be pulled out. Councillors, are there any of these that are required to be pulled out this evening? If not, I'll go to the chair of audit committee. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ree.
Yes, please. May I pull 12.1A1 on page 16, please?
12.1 IA1 on page 16, the internal auditor's report. Yep, on page 16. Yes, so I'll pull that one out and I'll go to you, Councillor. Let me just check. Councillor Ree, are you going to require this to go behind closed doors? No, okay. So I'll go to the chair of the committee, Councillor Lagan, for item 12.1 IA1. As chair of the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Microphone's not working. I note the committee recommendation and I yield to the.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that motion? Oh, sorry. Were you moving the committee recommendation or? Yes. Yep. And seconder for the committee recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Hatton. Opposed, Councillor Ree. Councillor Lagan.
I'll have to use a separate microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The committee had some discussion about this. It was passed at committee. I'm happy with the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hatton.
No comment.
Councillor Ree.
Yes, thank you. With regard to the memorandum of outstanding business, the city's leave liability on page 19, please. With the action resulted, was there actually a comparison? I looked through everything, I couldn't find it. But whilst I support that the staff having the time off over Christmas, I just wondered whether or not that we've done a matrix compared for other years, and we've actually interviewed or consulted the staff to see if they wanted to, because some people don't like time over Christmas because they don't have any families or they don't want to go anywhere or COVID can't let them go anywhere. So I just wondered whether or not there was any consultation with the staff, please, and that's not confidential.
Thank you. Yep. Ms Hawkins.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Yes, Councillor Ree, so individual leaders will talk with their employees to understand if there's reasons that they don't want to take their break, and we'll work with them. So the majority of staff have been very comfortable to take that leave, but certainly we would work with individuals if they had any concerns or wanted to work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was just ensuring it wasn't mandatory, that's all. Thank you.
That's it. All right. Is there no one else who wishes to discuss this item? Then we'll go back to you as a mover. Councillor Lagan, are you?
Nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
And I will now put that motion. So we're putting item 12.1 IA1. Thank you. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And that now does bring us to the balance of the reports. So the other three reports. Councillor Lagan, as chair of that committee, would you like to move the balance of reports?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the balance of the report.
Is there someone to second those? Councillor Ree. I will now put the balance of reports. That is unanimous. Thank you. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised the remainder of the Audit Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Councillors will now move on to the Community and Resource Committee items. Are there any items you wish to be pulled out? Councillor Reid?
Yes. Yes, please. Could I pull out 12.2 ES1 Churchland's Estate Parking, please?
Yes, you may. And councillors have received the alternative recommendation that's been circulated for that item. Are there any other indication? Councillor Ferrante?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to pull out 12.2 PS1.
Thank you. On page 51. Great. Is there any other items you wish to pull out? No other indication. So we'll go to Councillor Sard. What we might do actually, we'll start with item 12.2 ES1. This was recommended by committee through to council. I know the two councillors are aware of some slight modifications. So in talking to the chair, we'll go straight to Councillor Reid to put that alternative rec on the back of the sheet. Yep, Councillor Reid.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And if we could read it all the way. This is an interim measure, which we'll see by item number 3. The council, thank you. The council approves the following changes to parking restrictions adjacent to Churchland Senior High School. The addition of a 15-minute parking signs on the south side of Churchlands Avenue, opposite house numbers 35 to 43, applicable from 7:30 to 9 and to 2:30 to 4:15 on school days. The addition of no parking signs to 25 bays on the north side of Memory Place, applicable from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m, with the exception provided to P-plated vehicles. And the modification of no stopping signs on the north side of Churchlands Avenue, adjacent to house numbers 64 to 72, applicable from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m, and from 2:30 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. on school days, to include verge parking restrictions within 2 metres of the curb line. That the city meets with the State Member of Churchlands, the Department of Education and the Churchland Senior High School to advise of the modifications to parking controls, to seek cooperation in communication with the preferred student parking areas within Memory Place to all new Year 11 and 12 students, and to urge them to complete the traffic management feasibility study and fully fund the recommendations. And thirdly, in order to address any issues that the community may have, that a report be presented to the Community and Resource Committee meeting to be held in May 2022 after term 1 of school, to summarise the parking activities and the issues that have occurred since the implementation of this strategy. It should be this.
Yep.
This strategy.
No, this strategy is fine.
That strategy?
That's fine.
This
That's
strategy?
fine. And
Thank
Councillor Proud would like to second that. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will put that item. Thank you, councillors. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Just for those members in the gallery, I can confirm that meeting has already been set up. I'll now go to item 12.2 PS1, Sustainability Action Plan Renewable Electricity Provision. Councillor Sargent, as chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I will move the committee's recommendation 1, 2 and 3.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hatton. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Ferrante? Yep. Councillor Sargent?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This got quite a robust debate at committee, Mr Mayor, and there was a lot a lot of questions from councillors that popped up, and there's even more questions from councillors that popped up during the week. This is actually quite timely because, as we all know, the world leaders were meeting in Glasgow, and it was all about, among other things, reducing emissions. And this is a part of our program for the City of Stirling of doing our bit. And everyone in the world must do their bit, and this will add to us increasing our solar energy, and the recommendation does talk about 600,000 extra a year for option 2, which is quite a significant investment from the city, and hopefully we will realise savings. A lot of the questions that popped up during the week were about emissions from carbon. Why hasn't battery storage been included in perhaps the recommendation? Maybe we can get something like that in the matrix. So I do know what Councillor Ferranti is going to talk about, and I do support what Councillor Ferranti is going to talk about, but I'm going to leave that debate for Councillor Ferranti. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll close if I need to.
Oh, the suspense is killing me. Councillor Hatton is seconder of the motion.
No comment.
Let's hear you, Councillor Ferranti. That's a big build-up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm sorry to deflate everyone, but I'd like to hold this over to the next CRC in February. Also, I'd like to propose a workshop. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that we need to consider. The goalposts are continually changing. Batteries are becoming cheaper. We need to see the value for the ratepayers. So I think I need a bit more information before we're sort of forced it just before Christmas. And we all enjoy obviously supporting and making the environment a better place, but I think we need some more time to explore.
So just to be clear, it's not the next CRC, because I think we've got one coming up. This is the one in
February.
In February, thank you. And I know Councillor Lagan's seconded that. So that is, after the big build-up, it was a bit of a letdown, I've got to say. Yes, so sorry, so to be clear, there is a workshop prior to that. Thank you. So we will, that's a procedural motion, so I will now put that, councillors. February 23, I think, the workshop, is that 20, 22? February 30th? Yeah. All right, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That does bring us to the balance of the Community and Resources Committee reports. Councillor Sargent, as chair of the committee.
It's probably the easiest one I'll ever do, Mr Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to do the balance of the reports.
And seconded by Councillor Proud. I will put that. Go to the vote, thanks. Thank you, everyone. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised the remainder of the committee and committee recommendations have community and resource committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Takes us to item 13, which is reports for consideration in accordance with section 4.24 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2021, and 13.1 is the use of civic facilities 2022. Do I have a mover of a motion, please? Councillor Proud. Moving the motion. Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Sargent with a question. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Reid, Councillor Proud?
Nothing.
No, nothing yet.
I'll close the
That's right. Councillor Sargent, your questions?
Just a quick question, Mr Mayor. On page 125, it has the list of councillors doing the opening addresses for the citizenship ceremonies. I note that Councillor Proud's name is mentioned twice, and as she will be the person presiding over the... Is that correct?
No, we should probably change that. I'm guessing. Yep. Is this... Okay. From this approval tonight and just deal with it through the... Does it have to be approved?
Can I suggest, Mr Mayor, we just push everyone up and the two that were meant to be just flip into place?
Yeah. Well, so that's what I was just checking, but the problem with that is we've got a whole item of citizenship ceremonies we've got to then approve at some later date, and I just don't know if Councillor Sargent, would you be happy just to move an amendment that they orders move up?
Yeah, very happy. That was the simplest solution.
Yeah. All right, so Councillor Proud's happy with that. So the motion has basically got all the civics function schedule and the citizenship ceremonies as they are written, but all moved up in the spaces that Councillor Proud leaves. All right, now Councillor Ree.
Well, I'm still concerned about this whole citizenship and the opening address anyway, which I've said several times. Why can't we approve it without the designation of the opening address councillors? Why? Because then you've still got the proposed citizenship there, and then you just take out the delegated councillor, the opening address. That's all.
This was
my suggestion.
Yeah, I get that.
That doesn't actually sound good with the removal of Councillor Proud. Doesn't actually.
We probably need to change the wording.
That doesn't reference what your intent is here.
No,
so
no,
that's
we'll get
why
that.
I'm suggesting just take out the councillors.
I think the intent is to move everyone up. Look, to be clear, this is so that it is very transparent and open. Who is on? That's not to say if someone can't make it, they can organise a proxy for themselves. I don't think it precludes that from happening. But this is to ensure that everyone knows when their turn is coming up. It's all open. It's been approved as part of the function schedule. Councillor Reid, are you happy with that?
Well, I mean, well, not really.
I'm trying to understand what the issue is. If it's all listed,
it to you several times.
Yeah, but if it's all listed and
also
everyone's in order, and if you can't make it, you can organise a swap or a proxy.
Well, I still think it was far better done by the Mayor's office when it was done properly.
The Mayor doesn't want this responsibility.
The Mayor doesn't want it, fine. Whether or not the people that don't want to do citizenship, they could actually say now to take them off the list as well. That might be save an issue like dinners.
Certainly. Is there any councillor who wishes to take themselves off the list? Do it now. No indication. There you go, Councillor Reid.
Mr Mayor, can I make a comment?
You may. I think we're going to you to close debate, probably.
Does anybody else want to speak?
I doubt it.
It's a boring subject, but very important. We could just treat this as a grammatical. It can just be removed. Take my name out and leave it as it was for the minutes. Doesn't need to be. It's in the agenda. It's just a grammatical. You don't need a reason to take it out.
I don't know if we need that many words to just say that we're moving the list up, probably.
No, we don't need to say anything.
But I think
just
either way,
fix
the intent's clear. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's obvious what we're trying to achieve here.
Verification of people that want to actually, you know, like if you want to time your citizenship with a particular councillor, will the minutes reflect the new list?
The minutes will reflect the new list, yes. Thank you, councillors. The debate is closed on this one. I think we've covered it and we'll go to the vote. That is, I think we're waiting for Councillor Ree. Yours is showing up as not. There you go. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 13.2, 2021 Electors General Meeting. Absolute majority vote is required for this on page 132. To have a mover of a motion, please. Councillor Lagan, your motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move the recommendation 1, 2 and 3 on page 132.
Thank you. Councillor Hatton seconded. Is there anyone opposed? Is it just a question? Yep, I'll just allow you a question.
How will the ratepayers be informed, given that the comments tonight about some ratepayers aren't on the internet, to actually tell them that it's actually not on the 6th and it's going to be on a date whenever?
Yep, I've got no doubt that we can probably write to the regulars who come to these meetings. I think that's normal practice anyway. Yep, Mr Blanchard.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is set out at the top of page 134. We will be advertising, we will be writing to all the attendees of the last 3 Electors General meetings and making sure that information is widely disseminated in other ways.
Thank you.
will it be advertised on the community group that gets the emails that you know, like
I'm sure it'll be in all our
that
publications.
Other group that
Yep.
if you are a community group, you can record to get.
Yes. Yep. It'll be in all our publications and widely publicised. Bring your friends. Yes. Thank you, Councillor. It's not for debate, is it? Just a question? Yep.
Follows. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follows through a similar line, but can we have it in sort of like a written poster format, so that we can put it around those areas in the city that people congregate at, like the shopping centre information boxes. The reason I do ask this is, as you probably know, I've really come out with the fact that a lot of people that are of a certain age don't look at the internet, but they do still look at the information boards.
Thank you.
And I think we should still accommodate them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take that on board. I think there was two separate things, just to clarify. I think Councillor Ree's concern was more around making sure people don't roll up on the 6 when it's not on. And Councillor Farrelly is very much just making sure that it is widely disseminated so that everyone knows about it. So I will put that to the vote, seeing as no one's objecting. That is Councillor Migdale, if you can just have your vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14, motions of which previous notice has been given. We do have item 14.1, a notice of motion from Councillor David Lagan for lighting at Yokine Reserve Car Park with an alt rec on page 139. Is there anyone who'd like to move a motion? Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I move the motion on page 139, suggested alternative recommendation, but that read, the council develops a design plan for the installation of lighting for the Yokine Reserve Car Park, and the cost of installation be listed for consideration on the mid-year budget review, which is a change.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Migdale. Is there anyone opposed? No, then I will put that item. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 15, notice of motions for consideration. Item 15.1, proposed notice of motion from Councillor Migdale, notification of significant events. Councillor Migdale, would you like to read that out?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. I would like to move that councillors are provided with a policy on notification and attendance of councillors at significant events, awards nights, infrastructure project initiation and completion of new builds and refurbishments, including openings and changes in services at the City of Stirling, and also that formal openings, including plaques on buildings for new builds and major refurbishments, be reinstated in all instances effective immediately.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ree. Is there anyone opposed? No, then I will put that motion. Councillor Franti. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 16, questions by members of which due notice have been given. I have nil. Item 17, new business of an urgent nature. I have nil. Item 18, matters behind closed doors. I have nil. That brings us to item 19, councillors. Almost there. And closure of the meeting. I declare the meeting closed at 8:35 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for tonight. Thank you to those members of the gallery, and thank you to those viewers at home, and good night.